Welcome to this afternoon's PTIC meeting. Hopefully you all had a good summer, because last time we met was in June. There's, what have we got? 22. There's a bit too many to do round of introductions now. So if you're going to say anything or chip in, then please do introduce yourself at the start, so we know who you are. So I have apologies from Graham Brown, ex-West Yorkshire, now independent, and Justin Bloom from VIX. Nick, do we have apologies from Teresa, or is she?
No, she should be about to join.
Right, okay, cool.
I'm here.
Have we got apologies from?
On cue.
Have we got apologies from anybody else? Right. Okay. So notes of the last meeting in June. If there's anything people want to raise, then let me know. There was opportunity for discussing disruptions in Sirius X with Triumph. And there was an action. Triumph and Nick from Cornwall was going to talk about the Excel timetable tool. Have you been able to do that and sorted it out?
No, there's been nothing further on that. We moved on from that now anyway, and we're looking at another tool for the future. So I don't know what the position is for operators that might need to use it though.
Yeah.
I guess
Okay.
I can provide a brief update on that, team, if that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So at the moment, we are currently looking at options for updating that tool and addressing sort of the identified issues that users with that tool are having. And hopefully, by the next time we've got one of these meetings, there should be a more definite update as to how that piece of work has gone. But at the moment, the program's position is we're looking at sort of updating the tool and sort of dealing with the issues around dates and all that are currently making the tool difficult to use. So that's the position from the DFT on that tool at the moment.
Okay. And then busy time for you, Triumph. Dan and Mike, we're gonna get together to talk about coach data.
Yes, we did. I eventually had that conversation with Amy Brown from TNDS around sort of NCSD data and some of the issues and inoptimalities that we are seeing with NCSD. We've taken away that feedback, and the board's team and KPMG would be working on implementing some of the changes that are required to be made to NCSD as a result of that feedback, or as a result of the feedback we got from Traveline. And one of those things is around, getting additional resources to proactively, go out and fill in the gaps in the data and, and contact coach operators in a way that, automation, as we assumed, was going to solve the issue, doesn't. And I'm pleased to say at this point in time, we've got some extra resource from KPMG specifically dedicated to NCSD and proactively looking at the data and managing that data set. From a departmental perspective, we need to have a longer term view as to how we ensure data quality on the NCSD, and that's something that we are looking at as a program. But in the short term, we've allocated extra resources to ensure that we address the data quality and completeness issues that people have raised with the NCSD. That's where we are at the moment with the action team. Happy to take any questions.
Dan.
Not really a question, more of a statement. So I believe when this meeting happened, I was on initial emails. I was very, very keen to meet with Triumph as part of this, but I believe I was excluded on purpose from that meeting. So I was going to make that clear that the inaction of that meeting was nothing on me. It was on the department, I believe.
Okay. Yep. Mike.
No, I just had I've never really had a chance to look at the coach services data, but I did have a quick Google before this meeting, and there seems to be some confusion as to where it's located. Like, I think you go on Traveline, it points you somewhere else, and I think there's a government website where it appears to like not be up to date. So you can find it eventually, but it ain't necessarily that easy to find, I don't think. That's just my impression. I could be wrong.
Should I respond to that?
Yeah, please.
So as part of the migration novation of NCSD and well, I suppose full assimilation of NCSD into boards, National Coach Service data is now downloadable on the boards platform, and that's how we intend to go forward. So if you need to consume coach data, you go on boards where you go to sort of download data. There is a segment or section for downloading coach data, and you can download coach data from there, and that's how we intend to make coach data available going forward until there is either a policy or shift in as much as that's concerned. In terms of the old API links, where that has been retired for a while. It's just from a departmental perspective, finding who owns that web page, because it's a legacy web page. In order for us to take it down, so as not to continue the confusion that is being caused by that page still being up and people looking for the data. But the message is you download coach data on boards now, and that's how it's going to be for the foreseeable future.
That's the same one. Sorry, I've just put that in. That sorry, I've just pasted one in there. I didn't see Amy had done it, but yeah, it's the same one as it's the same. So that one's defunct then. That one.
Yeah, on data.gov.uk. Yes.
Yeah, that
Right.
points to our website still on there, which isn't useful.
Yeah.
Okay, Jonathan.
Hi, folks. Yeah, there's a fair amount of pain out there about the shortcomings of the NCSD, particularly at airports. They're very deeply unhappy at the moment about the quality of the NCSD. There's a lot of duplicate schedules in there. And we trace this problem to the fact that it's non-statutory. And so all the coach companies see it as a nice to have rather than something that they must do, like the local bus companies have to do it under legislation. But just to register with you, Triumph, the fact that certainly Heathrow in particular, who obviously are a massive coach hub, they're very, very unhappy that this hasn't been resolved.
Yeah. Okay. So I have let you all slip so far by not introducing yourself. The last speaker was Jonathan Rapier from Transport API. Mike Baxter is from Leicester City Council. Dan is from Basemap. Tricia.
So I was going to go on the theme that Jonathan did with data quality. So we use it for our back office real-time predictions, and we had to stop we had to exclude some routes because they're using non-recognised NAPTAN codes, so 9000 codes. So we have an overnight data compiler without a P system, and that data compiler was failing and slipping every evening. So I had to exclude the 2 routes that were causing the problem to actually get that to work. So it did get reported by Trapeze to the BODS help desk, so I don't know how far that got down the line, but yeah, using non-NAPTAN codes has actually caused us quite a bit of an issue with our downstream services.
Yeah, okay. Dan, and then I'm going to close this discussion.
Oh yeah. There's a 9000 to NAPTAN lookup that we used to maintain as part of it. It was provided to KPMG. It's part of the feedback I would have given if I was invited to the meeting. But yeah, it might be worthwhile taking an action, KPMG or Triumph, to find that old lookup and rematch those before producing the data set, because we spent a lot of time ensuring that all the National Express 9000 codes had a valid NAPTAN code associated with it.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Okay. So the Nick Truscott from Cornwall and Triumph from the DFT were also going to talk about it was coach data as well. Then I was discussing with Triumph particular Flix Plus service issues with restrictions in fares and timetable data. We haven't come to a conclusion on that one yet. It's not simple, unfortunately. Then there was an action. I talked to NAPTAN team about authorities creating dummy 999 operational stops. So that is on the backlog. Likewise, temporary stops in NAPTAN, for example, Glastonbury Festival, where publishing services months in advance. That is on the list of things to revise when we produce an updated Trans-Exchange profile document, which will be relatively soon. And a code for non-UK bus stops. Again, that's been discussed briefly with the NAPTAN team, but not in any detail. And lots on bus stops here. I didn't talk to John, unfortunately, about Hertfordshire bus stops, but I did poke Hertfordshire to encourage them to update their stops. I don't know whether you've noticed any improvement yet.
Occasionally go back and check recently, but you're mentioning it will remind me to do so. If there's still a problem, I'll let you know.
Yeah, we've noticed a number of updates when they've been quite quiet before that, so hopefully that has been resolved.
Yeah, I mean, the problem was that my local town council wants to provide seats at bus stops. It wants to know which are the busiest ones, and that's not helpful if they don't appear in the data set. So yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And then Mike Nolan from Traveline and Nick from Cornwall are going to talk about disruptions system and the passenger app to work out how they could learn from each other.
Yeah, Tim. Yeah, we had that conversation, and yeah, thanks as well to Nick for his time on that as well. It's something we are looking at implementing on the new Traveline site coming soon.
Yeah, I think that was a good conversation we had, wasn't it? And I think
Yeah,
if we can bring that forward, it will be good for everyone involved with disruption messaging, I hope.
yeah,
The
great.
volume of it we seem to be handling these days.
Yeah, Jonathan.
Jonathan Raper, Transport API. Just briefly to let you know, we are actually publishing at our API the Sirius X data The documentation is on our docs page if anybody's interested. So you can also get Series X data from us.
Excellent. Good to know. Thank you, Jonathan. I failed to find any of the documentation about the way Transport for North were doing language. So I think that is lost in the mysteries of some network drive somewhere, never to be found again.
Tim, we actually provided that service at TFN.
Yeah.
So if you want to send me a message, we'll dig it out for you.
Yeah, thank you. Because I wrote some guidance and can't find it. So yeah, thanks, Jonathan. EU standards development. I have not circulated the link to the opera document because it hasn't come out of the working group yet. Like all things Europe, it's been on holiday over the summer and ground to a halt. Things are now warming up, and so in the next few weeks I would expect to have something. I have failed to organise a discussion about block number, but I will send something round tomorrow. So if you want to talk about block and some of the issues around that, then watch out for that email. Okay, anything else on the minutes? No, in which case, Bus Open Data Service, Triumph, have you an update for us?
Yes, I do. It's gonna be a really quick update. So I think anyway, just give me a minute. Let me get my when you can see my screen.
Yep.
There you go. So I will start with a brief procurement update because it sort of contextualizes some of the other stuff I'm going to say. So as we know, we are currently in the process of, or we've been for a while now, in the process of procuring boards. And I believe the last time we spoke in June, we were just about to launch the ITT, I believe. So we have launched the ITT. We've concluded that process. We now have a preferred supplier. I can't mention names at the moment because of post ITT governance and sort of contractual activity is still going on. But we've identified our preferred supplier, and it's my hope that in the very near future, or definitely by the time we have the next one of these, everybody would know who the preferred supplier is, and we can continue working with that supplier to improve boards and A-boards and take it to a place where we think it should be in terms of being optimally fit for purpose for the various functions in which we require that service. Similarly to the technical procurement, we also split the engagement. So we split the procurement into sort of technical and engagement. So we're going to procure for a technical supplier and a Bus Connect supplier. So what I've just talked about is the technical supplier. We also carried out a procurement for the Bus Connect supplier. That process isn't concluded yet. So I cannot provide a definitive update on that because that process is still, is still ongoing. Hopefully by the time we have one of these meetings in 3 months' time, I should be able to give a definitive update. Now, as a result of the procurement we had and the result of the timelines we had in terms of the existing contract currently running down, we have essentially slowly deaccelerated the pace at which we delivered features, as you would expect for a technical delivery contract that is running down. So a lot of the work that we've done over the last 3 months is ensuring that we are addressing sort of technical debt and we are completing sort of commitments we made in terms of assimilating certain ancillary services into DFT architecture, but also commitments we made insofar as improving data quality and system performance enhancement. And we are envisage we will continue to do that between now and say the end of September when when the current contract comes to an end. That being said, in the last 3 months, we have done a lot of work in terms of, improving, faster processing. So improving, or making significant performance, in terms of the processing pipeline for timetables and fares data. We have now moved to serverless architecture, which allows for sort of scalable and parallel data processing, ultimately reducing time to publish and validate data sets. We feel the benefit of this would be shortening the data publication turnaround window for bots. Some data publishers in the room would understand. We have also done a lot of work in terms of improving publishing integrity and workflow enhancement. So we've released features that ensures duplication prevention at the point of publication. So flagging when sort of the same service or data sets for the same service are being published as a result of many reasons. So we believe this would address the issue around sort of multiple publication of data, but would also help essentially the quality of data that's available in boards and the accuracy of data available in boards. We've also done some work in terms of streamlining the operator and LTA profile pages, and that also includes providing at a glance service and data quality picture across the various data sets that are available on boards, and providing an easily understandable picture around health indicators. We feel like this prioritized summary would help the publishers of data and data owners, either from an operator or local authority perspective, sort of understand, triage, and resolve issues more efficiently as far as data quality on boards is concerned. We've also integrated fair data health review into sort of the service review flow workflow, which hitherto have been had been restricted to both timetables and AVL. We have also done some work in terms of the review data accuracy feature, including a view of vehicle locations real time. So when you're reviewing your AVL data, part of that view shows you the actual movement of the vehicle real time, and aligning that against the route map as per the timetables data that has been published to boards. We feel this would help local authorities and operators verify and better understand the operational reality of the data they have on boards. We've also done some work around overhauling the front end. and bringing it in compliance with revised GDS standards and UI expectations. We've done work around enhancing accessibility, responsiveness of the service for users, and done some work around, just overall, UI and UX improvement to the site over the last 3 months. In terms of ABODs, we have enhanced the on-time performance and journey analysis features. So journey analytics and on-time performance now distinguish between inbound and outbound trip directions. This improves sort of route level and stop level insights. And we hope this addresses the known analytical gaps where aggregated figures could sometimes obscure directional performance issues. We have introduced a stop analysis feature, which provides a geographical geospatial heat map tool, which visualizes sort of stop level performance. So, every stop nationwide now has, a feature where you can see the performance of that stop. And we hope that this would, help with sort of identifying and improving sort of route planning challenges that local authorities may have. But it also helps with diagnosing any sort of recurring patterns with particular stops and helping users understand, what stops have got issues, and hopefully help them fix those issues. We are going to be releasing a new dashboard to present board compliance metrics on ABODs. So bus operators and local authorities will be able to view sort of compliance metrics on ABODs. We hope to release this sometime around the 25th of September. We hope this tool will support enhanced monitoring and reporting across both data platforms. We have also developed a vehicle journeys feature that would help either local authorities or any other person from the perspective of the department, the BSOC team, for example, in performing analysis of vehicle journeys and distance traveled. So you could now select on a particular line over a particular period, and you would be able to see the distance traveled as per the data provided to boards of that line or service. We have also done some work around improvements to the GTFS and GTFS RT, ensuring that the data is closer to source, and facilitate a potential future expansion of GTFS to include fair data offerings, disruptions data offerings, and sort of greater accessibility information. That's the an update on boards over the last 3 months in a nutshell. I'm happy to take any questions at this point.
I would add, to start with, one of the things that has been going on with ABOD is that the team have been working with First Group to validate and compare the results that operators get within their own systems to ABODs to help improve that confidence of ABOD, which we've discussed here previously. There hasn't been that level of confidence, but that confidence does seem to be building up. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, First Group will have finished that work and we'll be able to perhaps share that. Right, so who have we got first? Nick Carey.
Hello. A statement and a question. Triumph, you have your customary modesty to the fore. You said, it's just a brief update. That is fantastic. I know from my time in the department just how much work you and your colleagues have done. So absolutely bloody marvellous. And you've obviously done a lot of work and a lot of thinking, and it's a hugely complex procurement, way beyond actually its size in value. Very complex. So thank you so much. The only question was any movement on block number.
So there was some movement, but not enough movement for me to provide a definite comprehensive update. So let's continue to work on that one in the background. Hopefully there will be an update by the next time we have one of these general meetings, Nick. I know it sounds a bit of a non-answer, but that's what I have got for you at the moment, Nick.
It's fine. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, then Ian from Lancashire.
Yeah, two queries on BODs. September is always a nightmare for local authorities in terms of school contracts and school registrations going in. Is there not a way of circumnavigating these out of scope services so we don't have to go through the rigmarole of BODs every time, appearing to say, yeah, you need to provide the transit exchange for this and the like, then having to produce documentation to then goes back to the OTC to say, then to come back and say, yeah, it is out of scope. Surely, can we not create within the pro forma that local authorities have to provide in the first place a tick box to say, is this out of scope of BODs? So we save ourselves about 3 or 4 hours for every service as an option. So I'm complaining, but giving you a solution potentially.
Yeah, I take that on board. It's a solution that I might need to sort of discuss with you further and flesh out with you further, Nate. Ian, sorry, not Nick. So if you don't mind, I'd reach out to you, Ian, and maybe we'd discuss this further outside this forum.
Okay, happy to do. And the second one is we've been pinged by another operator to say about the multi-operator ticketing to go through BODs. So I've been in touch with Steve Penn, raised a couple of tickets on this one, but as a local authority who actually publishes as agents for a number of operators, we can't complete it all because we can't add in operators that we aren't agents for into the multi-operator ticketing spreadsheet or system that's available. So what's the solution around that one?
I prefer a solution. I would also need to understand sort of, the details around sort of this multi-operator scheme that is being proposed. Ian, I'm afraid it's one of those ones we need to discuss as well outside this forum for me to sort of understand the length and breadth of the situation and fully understand the issues before I prefer a solution. So I guess it's 2 agenda items we need to take outside this forum and hopefully provide an update to this forum at the next time we meet, Ian.
Okay, there is an open ticket on it if you want to have a look, but okay, quite happy to have a offline discussion, no problem.
Sure.
Just in touch.
Thank you very much, Ian.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
Dan.
Hi, Triumphs. Thanks for that update. I've got just a couple of questions. Number one, do you have an idea on current compliance levels of timetables and fares and how much is being provided and how much is being missed on the service at the moment?
So we've got an at-a-glance picture as a result of the feature that we have provided on ABODs. I didn't come into this call with those figures. So if you want figures, I could provide something to you. By the time we release this on the 25th, everybody would have figures for their particular areas. And if you want, I can provide an update on sort of general compliance figures on a service level on BODs. I don't have this on hand to provide that.
We did.
So-
I think we spoke on a previous update about obviously the A boards, and there was that kind of an initial kind of screen that showed overall compliance, and there was talk about maybe making a public version of that page. Obviously, the A board sits behind only local authority to access it. Has any more thought been given around doing that?
Yes, there's a lot of thought that has been given around, not just that, but opening up A boards as a whole. There is some interest from different stakeholders, but there is still engagement that we have to have intradepartmentally, but also with bus operators, because I'm looking for a synonym for consequences now. But there are implications exactly of opening A boards, and we just want to make sure that all of those have been understood and managed, and stakeholder views accounted for before a decision is made on that. Dan. So that's where we are at the moment. But these conversations continue.
Okay. Perfect. And then my second point isn't actually really about boards per se, but obviously we all got pinged an email about, or I'm assuming we did, about the participation in the post-implementation review for boards, and we had to provide a lot of information by July. I never really saw any timelines of what the expectation of output was going to be from that. Was going to be a report, and is there an idea of when that report might be published from the feedback that lots of us gave in the industry?
It's one I can take away. I am not responsible for that work per se, although I know the colleague who's doing that work. So I would refrain from sort of making definite statements and on timelines and all of that, because I'm not as close to that work as the question would expect me to be. So let me take an action to find that out and provide an update to this group.
Brilliant. Thanks, Triumph.
I have just put a screen grab in from the beta dashboard of compliance figures. So Dan, you've got some numbers there. That is from the beta version. And Tessa's yeah. Okay. Right. So who next? Nick Truscott.
Yeah. A couple of things just picking up is I noticed the mileage data actually when I was looking at some specific trips earlier in the week. Is there any way we can get to that data now, or is there something we need to wait for, be able to export that data, make it into a usable form? That's obviously quite useful to have it there, but we need to be able to extract that, particularly for some of the data collection that we're being asked to do.
Give me a minute. Isn't that? I thought that was possible. Just let me take that away, Nick. And I would reach back in touch with you personally for yours, and I would also try provide a general update to this group as to how. Obviously, a lot of people won't be able to access that until we launch that on the 25th. But sort of your particular question, let me take that away and provide an update to yourself, Nick. Is that okay?
Yeah, thanks. The second part is, how much confidence have we got within the compliance figures when there's still substantial delays in OTC processing service registrations?
Yes. The compliance figures are subject to the data that we consume from the OTC, Nick, and that's that's a fair question to ask, a very good question to ask, actually. We continue to have conversations with the OTC and intradepartmentally as to what possible solutions can be had in terms of delays to sort of registrations or cancellation of registrations request, and ultimately the downstream effects on sort of analysis that that rely on that on that data. As with most conversations, different ideas are flying. once we agree on a position as to how we deal with this, or how we deal with the interaction of boards and OTC data, I'll be providing an update. But it's the picture is still evolving on that one, Nick. I hope that answered the question.
Just to put some context around it, most of the services that's changed on the 31st of August in Cornwall were duly registered more than 42 days in advance, but most of them were only processed last week by the OTC. So 2 weeks after they commenced, before they were even processed by OTC. I don't know if that's a picture across the country. Other local authorities in other areas are seeing the same, but I don't know if you want to do it now, Tim, or come back to it later. There's a sort of subsequent question about what happens if an operator needs to make a short notice because of an emergency road closure. Come back to that under any other business if you want. But
yeah, I think that's probably the best thing to do. But it is a national issue, and the OTC are well aware of it. Tess.
Hello, Tess Harwood representing Coda Garden and the Powies tool today. We are offboarding the users that we have had for the last 5 years trying to develop this tool at the end of September. So my question to Triumph is, I understand that you are reinvesting in the TransExchange tool from this conversation, and when do we expect that to be ready, just so that I can forward that on to the users that we are offboarding?
I don't have definitive time frames at the moment, Tess. And at this point, I would refrain, even if I had some sort of time frame, because as with most digital work, sometimes what you plan for and what you get are not quite the same in terms of timelines. We will continue to have those conversations internally, and once we are satisfied that there is a time frame we can share, we would share with this group and every other interested stakeholder insofar as the TransExchange tool is concerned. But at this point in time, I don't have any definitive timelines or dates that I can share with you, Des.
All right. Well, thanks for letting us know that. It's good to know that that's the direction that you've kind of gone with. Just for those who are interested, we'll be offboarding 18 operators and 200 services. So just to expect some degradation in the small operator data sphere at the end of September.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on to Naptan now, and we've got Emily, who's gonna give us that update, I think. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Bollins and I am the delivery manager on the Naptan team, and we also have Geeta here as well, so she can introduce herself when we get to that part. I know no one from the Naptan team has come along to a meeting in a while, so we probably have a bit of a longer update just so to get you all up to speed with where we're at. But let's just make a start. So we have a few things that we're currently working on. The rail replacement bus data, we're bringing that into Naptan. So we'll talk about that as the main priority. Then we have been looking at the audit for the Naptan rail data, and also accessibility plus Naptan, or A plus Naptan for short. I know that you'll have gone through some of these things in the last one or a few months ago, but just to keep you updated. So we, as the main priority for the Naptan team right now, we are bringing in the rail replacement bus data into Naptan. This goes in line with the PSV AIR regulations that have now come into force, and bringing in digital, visible and audio information about routes, and also the upcoming stops on public service vehicles, and that's also including the rail replacement bus services. So right now in Naptan, we don't have all the information on the locations of the rail replacement bus stops. So that is something that we need to work on so that everyone can get that access for the PSV AIR. So to meet the regulatory requirements and improve the passenger experience, we need accurate and structured data on the rail replacement bus services. And to do that, we want to integrate the rail replacement bus services into NAPTAN, because we want to ensure the consistency of the naming conventions of bus stops and make sure that that works for the passenger's journey. So our current progress, we're working on the MVP for this. And as I said, because of the regulations, this is our top priority for the team right now. So we're working on an MVP, and that would integrate the corpus data and the station's XML data sets. And that's to use the CRS and TIPLOC data to join up the data sets. And then also we're working with the rail delivery group to source the information on the rail replacement bus services and get the information on the lat longs to make sure we have all the accurate information on that, to then be able to do the digital, visual and audio information for that. The rail delivery group are working with the third-party Fabric to collate all this data. So we're just waiting for them to get back to us with that data right now. So our next steps for the rail replacement bus data into NAPTAN, when we get the data from the rail delivery group, we'll analyse what data they've given us and make sure we have everything in place. But we're currently working back and forth just to make sure we've got the right data from them and everything is has been vetted and we're happy with the accuracy of the data. Obviously, that's very important for us and for passengers. Then we want to introduce the rail replacement data into NAPTAN, and we will then update the NAPTAN API so that developers and transport operators can then access the NAPTAN data, and then you'll be able to use that data, and hopefully everything will work well for that in the future. So that's the rail replacement bus bit that, as I said, is the priority, but I'll hand over to Geeta next, and she'll talk about the next points, if you're there.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Yeah. So auditing the national rail dataset against stations.xml for the rail station dataset, which is 910 stops in NAPTAN, there have been an ongoing concerns about the accuracy and data quality. So the business need was very clear that we need to understand what are the data issues and how could we address those data issues, especially in 910 rail dataset. So it is consistent and it is reliable, not only for the journey planning, but for the operational use and the information that we are sharing with the public. To understand these gaps, we are using stations dataset as the reference point to compare against 910 dataset. For reference, stations dataset is published by Rail Delivery Group in Rail Marketplace. So that's what we are using as a reference. So for us, the aim is to spot what the gaps are, what the differences are, so that we can work out what need to be done to get 910 dataset to right standards. So we carried out an audit and we have identified the discrepancies between these two datasets. In the first iteration that we have gone through, we have focused on identifying missing rail stops, mismatch in the station names, and the differences in the lat logs. So the analysis, even though it was scoped specifically to these fields, but we have been able to uncover additional insights as well into the data space, the 910 data issues that we identified, and these also need some attention. So the audit, as we are now, it's already complete, and I'm in process of preparing a report to set out the findings along with some recommendations to guide how we can improve 910 dataset. This is the update that we have, but at the same time, we have one question around the 910 data set. What we want to understand is, are there any planning or operational services that are using 910 stops in their either journey planning or any operational services? Why we want to ask this question? We want to understand the impact of the data discrepancies that is sitting in NAPTAN, and also want to understand what are the alternative sources that, if NAPTAN is not being used, are used for planning this railway journey. So it would be help if we can understand and get that answer. I want to stop here before we go to the next one. If yeah.
Is anybody using? Yeah, Dan from Basemap.
Yeah, so we use it. We take the National Rail ATOC. It's a CIF file, MCA file, which is a timetable file. We use that to convert, and that has all the tip blocks in it. But we actually use NAPTAN 910 codes to convert it to, because we want to have that same kind of singular view, and we put that into our data cutter tool. So we have about 1,900 users of our data cutter tool that are consuming that type of data downstream, and it's used in our track software to do journey planning and things like that. So yeah, it's quite an important aspect, and we prefer using NAPTAN as a single source of truth over the ATOC kind of data itself. So yeah, no, we do consume that quite a lot.
Thank you. Peter from Eto World.
Yeah, so we're also using the 910, but what about the platform positions? Because I hadn't heard that mentioned. And also in terms of lat long, I mean, just the lat long of a station isn't particularly definitive. I mean, it depends what bit of the station you're wanting to represent. Is it going to be very much focused on the concourse ticketing area, or is it supposed to represent a midpoint on the track so that it will line up with the actual operation of the train? So it's a rather variable thing, and we do our own adjustments on account of those things. So further discussion might be quite useful, but particularly the codes for the lat long for the platforms, please.
Yeah, I think currently we do understand that the platform and entrance information is not there, and there is a bit of an inaccuracy over there. But what we are talking about, that the midpoint in the railway tracks, when the lat long is referring to the station. So it's not referring to the platform or entrances, but it is referring to that midpoint in the platform. But yes, if there is more information in terms of the issues with 910, it'd be great to hear so that we can handle those discrepancies.
But of course, the entrances are coming from the local authorities generally. It'd be good to get them from a rail source.
Yeah, we make that note, and yeah, we can have it in our future plans. Yes.
I'll put you two in contact with each other so you can discuss those issues in detail. Yeah. Nick.
We have some interesting anomalies in Cornwall where the rail replacement bus stop is nowhere near the station. Yeah. Because the stations historically were located where it was easiest to build the track, not necessarily where the village is. So we've got places like Menheniot, which is nowhere near Menheniot village. St Keen station is a mile away from where the rail replacement bus stops in St Keen village. How's those sort of things going to be handled? We don't end up with sort of random floating stops in the middle of a village that could accidentally get tracked to by a bus operator.
So for RRB stops, we are getting data from RDG. We haven't seen as yet what the data looks like. So we ourselves need to first vet the data to understand how it is sitting and what kind of information it is holding. Once we have that information, I think in the next meeting we can provide more information around that.
Okay.
Jonathan.
Hi, yeah, just Jonathan Raper here from Transport API. Just to let you know that we serve out the schedules of tube, metro, subway services using the 910 namespace. So we have quite a lot of services built on that, and we'd appreciate being kept in the loop if there are any changes to the delivery through NAPTAN. Thanks.
Sure. Okay, and John, you're on mute, John. While you undo that, John is representing ATCO probably at this meeting, or independent, depending.
Both, I think, Tim. From a user's point of view, surely the most important thing is where the rail replacement bus is going to stop. And from experience, that can, like Cornwall, be sometimes quite different from where the station entrance is. Can we be assured that in fact it is the rail replacement bus stop that is being identified and incorporated into any journey planning that's being done, rather than the station entrance and exit?
I think it's fair to say, John, if the NAPTAN team could deal with it if it was the entrance, because it knows where that is already, and that's why RDG are involved, because nobody seems to have that official data set of where the buses actually go from at the moment, which is why this exercise is being undertaken.
Right.
Yeah.
So it will be where the TOCs think that they are requesting operators to leave from. That might be different to reality, but it's where they're supposed to be going from.
Yeah, so I think with the rail replacement bus like data, we will be receiving that from the rail delivery group, and Fabric are working on that right now, and we should be able to hopefully give you an update in the next meeting once we've been able to have a look at that and see. But we have mentioned to RDG that obviously the accuracy of where the rail replacement bus stop is obviously really important. So they will be doing that as part of the work they're doing. So yeah, we'll give you the update on the next one. Thanks, John.
Yeah, Mark, and then I think we need to move on to A plus.
Thanks. Quick question, Mark Jones from Transport for Wales. Just interested, once the audit's been completed, who's responsible then for maintaining that data going forward?
There have been these, because right now the data set that we are creating, it's going to be the one-time data we are going to acquire and pushing it in a NAPTAN data set. The ongoing aspect of the recency of data, when things are changing in RRB space, how we are getting it updated in NAPTAN space, all these conversations are part of the process, and we are going to do that as we go forward. But right now, the MVP is currently focused on having that current image of where the RRB bus stops are within the country, and then having at least that data sitting in 910. The update that you're asking for is more in the discussion and the solution space, which we are currently not looking into, but it is part of the process.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mark, was that related to the rail replacement or the order of the 910? Okay. Great,
yeah,
thanks.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, we'll move on to A plus NAPTAN then next. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Emily. I'm aware that Tim did said that there have been a lot of updates around A plus NAPTAN in the previous the meetings that you had, but still I'll take a few minutes to give a bit of background to those who have not been part of those sessions, and then I can quickly move on to the progress and next steps. So for the problem statement, public transport, it's a complex space. The journeys, it involves a lot of, it's multi-operator, multi-mode, and the accessibility information available right now, it's quite patchy and it's not reliable. And that's a real problem. Why? Because if passengers with accessibility needs can't plan their journey with confidence, the network end up being harder to use and it is less inclusive than it should be. So that is the problem that we are dealing with in terms of accessibility, data availability. So we did a lot of work. We had alpha, and then we kicked off our private beta. We started small. We are focusing on bus stop accessibility, and we are first focusing on wheelchair users. One of the key decisions that I want to highlight is that the local authority data will always take priority over any other source of accessibility data. By that, what I mean is if we are generating, for instance, accessibility for street furniture data for Newcastle using an AI model, for instance, and then Newcastle local authority shares their audited accessibility data with us, we will use the council's data as the primary source, and the AI generated data will only be used to fill in the gaps. So that is one of the key decisions that we have in this A+ NAPTAN accessibility space. So where we are now, there are two aspects. One is the data pipeline to handle the data, accessibility data, and the second one is how we are generating the data. So first I'll talk about the beta pipeline. So the beta pipeline, it is built, it is ready. What it do, it can ingest and store the accessibility data from various sources. So it could be local authorities, it could be the data sets that we have created ourselves, and in future, if the data is created by AI model or any other source, if we have identified, this beta pipeline has the capability to ingest that data and store that data. Now, since the data is coming from various sources, it can come in different shapes, sizes, and formats. So the pipeline has the capability built to normalize this data coming from different sources into a consistent format. Next step is to predict the accessibility of the bus stop based on the street furniture data. So that is the next step. And the final one is we are publishing the data. We have a live API, but that is only available to beta participants. So they can have an understanding of what the current data looks like. At present, this beta pipeline is holding data for 6 local authorities. And when I say 6 local authorities, these are the authorities for which we have created manually data for that. And at the same time, there were 3 local authorities who provided accessibility data to us. So that is also sitting in the pipeline. The next thing is using AI models. The question is, why do we need AI models? We have more than 400,000 bus stops across the country, and manual data generation approach is neither feasible and nor it is scalable. And at the same time, we have a constraint that we cannot ask local authorities to create or provide accessibility data if they don't have it. So that leads us to the fact that we are testing now if AI models can help us. There have been a lot of research experiments and AI tools, testing with AI tools to understand the feasibility and viability of using AI to collect street furniture data. At this point, we have picked a suitable AI model that we want to use. We want to test, and the process, how we measure that this data that is produced by AI model is accurate and reliable. We have created a process and understanding of how we would measure the accuracy of that model. So this is where we are. I'll move to the next steps. So for AI model testing, the next step is we are entering into the pilot phase. We will run experiments with a set data to see if this approach is going to work, if it is feasible, it is scalable. There are a lot of experiments that we are going to do in upcoming weeks. And after that, we will be creating a report and sharing those findings to see where we go from there. So this is the update for the AI model. The second update that we have is for the beta pipeline. We are planning to update our data pipeline. As part of the process that we do user research with data consumers to keep them first in loop and also to get their feedback. One of the important piece of feedback that we got was that rather than us giving a binary accessible or not accessible label to a bus stop, it would be if we can provide raw furniture data itself. And why this is so? Because it makes sense, because accessibility is not same for everybody. What works for one person might not work for another. So sharing the raw data, it gives the developers an opportunity to create solutions that let people make choices based on their needs. So this is the change that we are going to make into the data pipeline. We have internal discussions with policy team, the subject matter experts. So we have decided that we are going to remove the inferences from the pipeline, and what we are going to provide would be the raw furniture data directly to the data consumers. So here is where the update ends, because there is where we are now.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure that there are 1,000,001 questions that people want to ask, but in the interest of time, I'm going to say that next week on Thursday morning, there is a public meeting, the first of new public meetings that the NAPTAN team are doing, and that is all about accessibility in NAPTAN. So I will refer you to that meeting if you've got questions, or please send them through to the NAPTAN email address, and the team will get back to you about that. And the reason that I'm doing that is because we've been joined by Kat Quain from Transport Scotland, who has joined us specifically to provide an update on their open data plans, which they were consulting on before the summer. So welcome, Kat.
Hi everybody, thanks for inviting me along. I know that Wendy would have been here if she wasn't on holiday. So you know, Wendy, you've got a Wendy replacement service. I also don't have any slides for you. I'm very sorry. So I do have some general updates, but if everybody's okay, I'll just do them verbally. If that's
Absolutely, that's
okay.
perfectly fine. Not everybody uses slides.
So I mean, to be fair, I did look into it, and to get an external consultant to review the results, it would have cost about £10,000 to £12,000. So doing it in house, saving all your taxpayers' money there. So good value for money in Transport Scotland. It does unfortunately mean it's taken slightly longer, because we you know, we're quite small teams. We're not as resourced as other government areas, so it's getting there. Right, if you like, I can give you a couple of sneak preview hints from things that have just been analysed. So nothing's written out, nothing's published, but when it is, this is all stuff that's going to be in there. So if it's helpful, I can just give you a quick flavour of what we've looked at so far.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please.
So one thing which is so clear cut that it's completely beyond doubt is that there was 100% support for NAPTAN being the standard that we use for bus stop data. So if anyone was concerned that we were going to have our own one or some other format, nope. Almost 100% exclusively people support using the NAPTAN standard. So that's information that no one else knows. That's just for you. That's so that's come out quite strongly. We'd kind of taken the approach that rather than saying, you know, list your 15 favourite data standards, that we would say, based on our initial analysis, we think this one. Do you have another view, or do you have some reason why that's not such a good idea? Because otherwise people could just go on forever about, well, you could use this data standard or that one, or you could make your own one, or you could modify this, and we'd be here all day. So largely the ones that we've suggested are the ones that have the biggest support. So that's Siri VM for the real-time data, TransExchange for the timetable, and what's the other one? NetX for fares and money stuff. There was quite a lot of really good feedback on different barriers that might pose to sort of smaller operators who might not have any sort of system, and then some of these licenses can be quite expensive, or they might not know how to operate them, or they might not have the in-house expertise to be able to use them. So there's a lot, and that the part on support and training is not fully analysed, so we don't know exactly what's coming out of that yet, but it's looking like those will be the standards that we will go with, but with some sort of caveat for people that, or operators that don't currently have systems, or that, you know, some sort of transitional arrangement to move away from absolutely nothing or bits of paper to something slightly more technical. So don't exactly know what form or what type of bedding in, but there's likely to be some sort of small caveat around some bodies having a bit of extra leeway there just to get up to speed. There was lots of really good responses that were just informative. Also some geographically challenged people. So a lot of people said, oh, don't just follow England, do your own thing, or do follow England, don't make it different. And some people said, oh, you already have bods, why are you consulting on this again? DFT has bods. Our website's literally covered in saltires. I just looked, the last consultation to close on it is about tartan registration. Like, clearly, this is only affecting Scotland. So, no, we don't currently have pods, but yes, but we will soon. It was really good, actually, because we got, I was really worried that we were going to get a very technical response, and it was only going to be sort of bus operators or data specialists or people who are in the sector that were going to respond. Because if you're just a bus passenger, it probably would be quite off-putting. You know, what is their AVM, what is all of this stuff? So we sort of structured the consultation so that the first bank of questions was like, what do you want to know about buses? What's your experience of buses? What do you think about bus stops? And then the second half of the questions was, what do you think about this data standard? Or how should we be doing this? Or what sort of timetable should we do this in? And that seems to have worked, because about half the respondents are from individuals and half the respondents are from companies, tech firms, public bodies, local authorities, all that kind of thing. So we've got quite a good response. I think it's about 76, 77 responses, which I know probably sounds quite small, but for Scotland, that's actually quite representative. I mean, if we have got, I think the Traffic Commissioner has about 136 bus companies on their books, but out of them, 4 of them do something like 90% of the routes. So, you know, in that context, 76 is actually huge. So it's quite good. It's representative. We've got lots of really good information. We have got a few people that have been confused and thought it was like the KPMG bods that we were talking about. I don't really know what we can do with that, because, you know, we made it clear that it was for Scotland, so can't really go back in time and change that. We might need to do a bit more engagement just to make sure that everybody's completely up to speed. For example, Scottish local authorities, who up till now have been using the NAPTAN standard voluntarily, if it becomes regulation, it's then going to be mandatory. So there's going to have to be some sort of bedding in. But the good news is that we've got some nice clear steers out of the consultation. So hopefully we should be able to give people some nice direct advice on what's coming in, and hopefully when it's coming in as well. Sorry, that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour through the whole thing with no slides and just me talking. If you know, I'm happy to chat, or if there's anything specific, if I know the information, I'm happy to share it at this point. It's up to yourselves, whatever you want.
Yeah, no, that was very useful. Thank you, Kat. Probably the obvious question is, have you got any idea when a formal response might be issued?
So I am working to the end of September.
Okay.
So it's actually not as far away as you might think. The numbers are pretty easy to analyse, because they're sort of yes/no questions, or yes/no questions with a caveat, rather than, you know, what percentage of this percentage thinks this small percentage or something else. So in terms of actual analysis, that bit's not too bad. And also, some of our points that are just really great technical points that we'll take away and look at, but they don't necessarily need to appear in the published analysis. You know, it could just be sufficient to say that, you know, we were given technical advice in this area without breaking down exactly what that was. But yeah, it should hopefully be the end of September. There's a short version, and it's called "We Asked, You Said, We Did." And if you look back on the consultation website, for anybody that filled it out, it's just 3 paragraphs. We asked this, you said this, we will now do this. And so if there will be a full analysis document, and it's probably going to be about 40 pages. It'll have lots of tables and things. But if you can't be bothered reading all of that, there'll be this 3-paragraph we asked you said that thing. And it'll be on the Transport Scotland website and our website, and that'll probably be, the short version that we use if people ask, what was that about? That'll probably be, and it'll be nice and concise. So yeah, if you want to save yourself a bit of time, that's the place to look.
Okay. Has anybody got any questions for Kat about Scottish Open Data?
Oh, there's something in the chat. Let me read.
Ah.
Is there any thoughts? Oh, actually,
Yeah,
yes.
Neil. Yes.
That was my thought, Neil. That was exactly my thought.
Yeah,
So,
good. Because they underpin so much geographic stuff, and this is all inherently geographic.
So previously, I was head of roadworks policy. Don't hate me, I know you're Stagecoach, but I was head of roadworks policy for Transport Scotland, and the roadworks commissioner's database that he uses for all the live roadworks in Scotland. It's the improvement service that take all the data from the 32 authorities, clean it up, put it in the right format, and give it to him. And so to me, this is just exactly the same thing. It's a different place where it's going, but it's basically you take information, you make it better as one, and then you give it to a place. So we actually did approach them, and it is something that they're aware of. So we've not sort of made any sort of formal agreements or discussed anything or talked about payment or anything like that. But we did sort of give them an early heads up that if this comes in and this is something that local authorities will be asked to do, we think you're probably the best placed body to support them, and they agreed.
Yeah, well, absolutely they are, because back in my day, so I was previously with Community Scotland or Scottish Homes, and it was the improvement service before they were set up. We hoovered up all the homes, the housing data, and created a standard format, and so improvement service took that on. They do it for all the planning stuff, they do it for the land register, they do it for, so it doesn't matter what the subject is, this is what they do.
Yeah, and they're very good, to be fair. So, and they already know.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, obviously in Scotland, it's not as many local authorities, but what I've found in my experience is that the person that does their GIS stuff, that does their data stuff, it's usually a very small team.
It is, and well, the downside is, I mean, I used to, back in the day, I used to work for Forth Valley GIS, which was part of the old sort of Falkirk, Stirling, Clackmannanshire councils. It was the old central region.
Back in the region days.
97 reorganisation. So yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the same thing. The 32 councils, 32 different flavours of doing things. Just like Stagecoach, 17 opcos, 17 different flavours of doing things. So yeah, improvement service all the way. That gets my vote.
I mean, hopefully they'll be resourced enough to take it on, but we sort of engaged with them early and said, look, this is something that might be coming. We just want to put it on your radar. And I think actually they've signed up to the public meeting next week, I think.
Brilliant.
So it's good to see that they're sort of just keeping their hand in and seeing what's happening.
Yeah, Will Hensman on the case. It's pretty, yeah. Ian McMillan, I used to work quite, he's retired now, but yeah, so they're all good guys. Good, excellent.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. And Tess, any findings on how to support small, medium operators to provide quality passenger data?
Now, two things I will tell you. In the response that we got, a lot of people talked about the unique hardships and difficulties that small to medium operators would face. And we didn't get any direct responses from what we would have thought of as being small to medium operators. So there was a response from CPT that we thought realistically that will probably include the views of some probably more medium-sized. But we actually even, there's a Welsh group, CABAC, which is the small to medium bus operators, and we actually reached out to them to say, look, no Scottish operators have contacted us directly. Other people have, and big bus companies have on their behalf, and talked about how this will be, but we actually haven't heard from any directly. So, obviously this is Scottish legislation, it won't affect anyone in Wales, but is there anything that's unique to your view that that you could share with us, because we're quite keen to hear. So we've had lots and lots of suggestions for things that we can do and hardships that they'll face and barriers that they'll see. but nothing really direct. So if anybody has any ideas on how, if there is a group out there or a, whatever, we've not been able to find it. But if anyone's aware of one, let us know, because we'd rather they spoke for themselves than other people spoke for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Nick?
I find that quite interesting, given the current position in Dumfries and Galloway, where small operators have stepped up to fill a lot of gaps. In terms of supporting those small operators, what we have in Southwest, down at the other end of the geography of the UK, is National PTI, formerly Traveline Southwest, do an agent service for BODS data.
Oh, that's actually something that a few people suggested. So obviously we've got Traveline Scotland, and a few of the responses did say, is this something that Traveline Scotland could help with? Is there a role for Traveline Scotland in this? So, I mean, I'm not saying that, there is or there isn't, but, it is something that's come up, that sort of agency approach. And I suppose, Traveline would make sense, but, there was that idea that if, could these small companies be represented by a larger agency rather than all individually procuring things for something that they might only need to use a couple of times a year?
Yeah, it certainly works well for us down here. All of our small operators in Cornwall are using the National PTI to do it as on an agents basis.
No, it's a really good idea, and it's something that, yeah, I mean, I can't say off the top of my head exactly how many, but it's something that I remember seeing in quite a few responses, that's a sort of good approach to take. There was a lot of calls for guidance as well. So I suppose then we're going to have to go off and write some, but so technical guidance on, like almost like a user's guide. How do we do this? How do we get data from A to B? But also more general, like what do you mean by this term and what's captured by that? And am I in scope or am I not in scope? I'm a community bus service. Am I in or am I out? Oh, that was the other thing. We'd initially thought that people would only want to hear about things that were sort of like what the traffic commissioner would consider to be local services. And one of the other first pieces of feedback we've had is that actually there's a lot of call for what we would have called long distance coaches to be included, and rail replacement buses and other things that we thought people maybe wouldn't have an interest in. So that was a bit of a surprise, because we didn't think people would want to know about those things, but apparently they do.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else with Kat? No. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. That was very informative.
Informative and quick. That's see, you're always saving money. It's always efficiency. If you don't mind, I've got another meeting and I can pop off. But if there's anything sort of body or anything that you think would, oh, I wish I'd asked that, just feel free. If you put it in the message in the chat, I'll still keep it open so I can see it, or you could just email me.
If you put your email address in the chat, then people can get in contact. Excellent. Thank you, Emily. I am going to move on to Mike from Traveline, who I know only has 6 minutes before he needs to go. So the Traveline update will be short.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Tim. Yeah, I'll go quicker than Kat. See, I'll tell you a lot of stuff, and then Amy is still on the call, so she can answer any questions. But yeah, I can probably stick around for another 5 minutes after Tim, if need be.
Oh, okay.
So the main update from Traveline is, I think from the data perspective, we're continuing to work with DFT on BODS. We've invested in the Iridium software, which we've mentioned on previous calls, which allows us to do a health check on the BODS data. So we're using that to analyse the completeness and quality from our perspective as a potential user of the data, and let's say feeding back through various forums, which I kind of won't go into the detail. But if anyone wants any specifics, we can kind of bring anything back to this group. The main things we've been working on, I think, for a more exciting theme are the web services contract. So we continue to work with colleagues at Passenger on the development of our web services. For those on the call who aren't aware, we let a contract to Passenger earlier this year. That's for the Traveline website and journey planner. also the Plus Bus website, the Traveline data website, and a new Traveline app as well. So it'll be available in app form. So we've been working over the last kind of 6 months or so on the kind of the requirements and the delivery of that. Pleased to say we're at a point now where we've just signed off on substantially signed off on the designs for the new Plus Bus and Traveline websites with some minor changes. So unfortunately, I can't share anything in this group, but we should have something to share shortly. We plan to go live with the Plus Bus website in the first instance. That'll be the first cab off the rank. Reason being, we've just launched an e-ticket, which I'll come to shortly. And what we want is the website to be live, the new and all singing, all dancing website to be live when we do the loud publicity for the Plus Bus e-ticket. So that one, we're hoping to receive a beta version in the coming weeks, and then following some tinkering back and forth with Passenger, we'd look to go live, relatively shortly after that, if everything's all up and running. But signs are at the moment that everything's in place for that. That'll be followed by the Traveline website and app. There's still a bit of work to be done behind the scenes on that. We're still doing some discussions around user journeys, search filters and that kind of thing. So like I said, we're working closely with colleagues at Passenger on that. And then we should have some more kind of firm timescales to share on when that would be going live. But again, the idea is to get that out as soon as possible, because we've now got 2 contracts running parallel at the moment. In the meantime, we'll continue the website will be live, and we'll ensure there's minimal disruptions. That we are still working again on the kind of choreography of which goes through it first, whether we go live with the app or the website first, and like I said, there's some consideration to be done on that one, just to see with the order of things and how we roll those out to the public. A number of the improvements include the disruptions information coming from the disruptions messaging tool on boards where that's being populated, and looking at other kind of sources of disruption information. Also, vehicle tracking and fares are being investigated, as well as the enhancements that we'll get on there. So, like I said, all very exciting stuff coming through. And in addition to that, forever first on both the websites, we've been working with the last few years with a company called Good Journey, who promote car-free days out, and who've been out and about in the wild, negotiating discount to various attractions up and down the country for people using public transport tickets to access places like Blenheim Palace, Alton Towers, and that kind of thing. Again, that content will now be uploaded onto the website, so there'll be kind of richer content on there for people to consume, and it should also help with SEO opportunities as well, as people are kind of searching for journey opportunities to those attractions. And then finally, the Traveline data website, which will be just a cleaner site for people to access TNDS and the other open data sets as well that we provide. So that'll be the one that will come kind of finally. So moving on from the web services and the Plus Bus side of what we look after, I mentioned earlier that the Plus Bus e-ticket has been the biggest thing that we've launched this year. So we launched that back in April this year. So we're now 23 weeks into that. We've got 3 major retailers on board, so Trip.com, TrainPal and TrainSplit are all retailing the Plus Bus e-ticket via their apps and sites, as well, alongside a number of TOCs as well, who are doing that. But they've been the main kind of the 3 that I mentioned there have been the kind of main area for sales. What's been interesting is we haven't promoted this to a single soul, or we've just made the thing go live, and then these retailers have picked it up and have made it available in their apps. I think what it does show is that actually at the point of sale, actually offering a bus ticket at the point of sale of a rail ticket has been what's been the kind of major boon in what we've achieved thus far. So we're already recording for the last 4 weeks that 28% of sales across the Plus Bus range have been on the e-ticket. So we're already accounting for a significant number of sales without actually telling, let's say, a soul about it, people just discovering it. We've seen sales increase over the same period of last year. We've seen a 55% increase in sales on the same period last year. So that's number of tickets issued, which also represents 47% increase in revenue. So the new sales that we're seeing on e-ticket are genuinely new sales. It's not just people moving across from paper. That will happen. I think we'll see a bigger shift when we do go out to the loud promotion. But as I mentioned before, there's a couple of things that are holding us back on going to a loud launch. One being we're working with Passenger on the new website. The main one being that our main retailer at the minute is Trip.com, and what we require in their app is some suppression code to be embedded within the app that prevents any clash with NFC when scanning on ticket machines, predominantly ticket machines. They've got that embedded in their Android version of their app, but unfortunately their Apple version, Apple are playing a bit more hard to get in terms of allowing them to do that. So there's a bit of back and forth going on there. But once that's in, we'll be a lot more confident of going to a loud launch. We just want to minimise any disruption to customers. What we are finding, though, however, is in the kind of real world that we're not seeing a significant number of complaints received. We've had 77 items of feedback received where people have had issues either scanning tickets or actually being refused travel by drivers or being enforced to pay additional fares. What we are finding is where we are getting those complaints through, that we're working closely with the local scheme coordinators who are being quick to address any issues, issuing refunds and then reissuing driver comms as well, and upgrading software where need be to scanning. So I think, on the backdrop of 28,000 ticket sales to date, having 77 complaints received or items of feedback, we're relatively pleased with that. Appreciate not everyone's going to complain, but I think what it does show is that we aren't receiving the volume that we may have anticipated that we might have received. During this same period, we've introduced 2 new schemes in Hucknall and in Burnham. And we've also received a significant number of inquiries now. Having worked here for just under 3 years now at Traveline, I think in the first 2 years we didn't receive a single request for new plus schemes. In the last probably 23 weeks, I've had about 18 or 19 different local authorities approach or operators approaching for new schemes to go in or amendments to existing schemes. So it's really positive. I think what it is doing is addressing a number of local authorities' BSIP aspirations, in that there's integrated travel is top of the agenda, and actually here's a ticket that's been in existence for over 20 years, but the way it's been retailed has probably been what's held it back. So now we've got it on a form that's useful for customers. We're seeing that actually it's being requested more and more now. So we do have over 280 schemes nationally. So I think we're in most of the prominent areas, but we are getting some new areas. One being the that we're exploring at the minute is down on the Jurassic Coast, where probably doesn't, from a population perspective, doesn't warrant a plus scheme in it, but actually the visitor market down in that area, particularly in the summer months, there's a huge volume of people going down on the train, need to link in with the bus, and this will provide the perfect opportunity to join those two up. So, like I said, really exciting times with Plus Bus. The next step will be to proceed to loud launch when we overcome, like I said, the obstacles that I've mentioned, which we're hoping will be in the coming weeks rather than months, and then we'll look to go and do some kind of broader promotion, really, to really drive sales and awareness of the products. So that's a whistle stop tour of what being up to Tim. So, like I said, I've got another few minutes I can stick around, Tim. So if there's any questions, if not, Amy's around for later as well.
Yeah. Hello, John.
Question, if I may. I'm based on the outskirts of London, so we've got the perennial problem that non-London routes are covered. London is excluded because not invented here syndrome governs everything that TfL does. Presumably there's no prospect of any movement on that front. It'll continue to be the gaping hole in the Plus Bus coverage, will it?
There's no plans afoot, John, but I said, I imagine conversations will always be ongoing. But yeah, there's no immediate plans for that. You're quite right. London's excluded from Plus Bus as it stands, and you're right for the reasons you mentioned.
Okay. Any other questions for Mike Traveline? No. Okay. Excellent.
Thanks,
Thank you very much, Mike. Okay, so local government reorganisation. For those of you that have been keeping an eye on what goes on in the local authority world, over the last few years, there's been a number of authorities which have combined or split. So going back in time, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole were created out of existing authorities, and for these purposes the important thing is they took transport authority powers, and so they look after bus stops. They also are a statutory consultee for bus registrations, and more recently authorities like Northamptonshire have split into West Northamptonshire and North Northamptonshire, and Cumbria into Cumberland and Westmoreland and Furness. I think that's right. So there's a few examples there. We are over the next few years likely to see an awful lot more, because the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill is going through Parliament. It's nearly completed its path, and that will make it easier for authorities to do what they want to do in terms of adjusting boundaries and combining and creating new mayoral authorities and things like that. And a lot of authorities have already put in bids to, if that's the right word, to government for their proposals. Why is that important for us? Well, when an authority takes transport authority powers, that means they need to be able to receive registration data, and it also means that they tend to start to look after bus stops, both of which are important from a data standards point of view. Clearly, if a new authority is starting to look after bus stops, you probably need to change, their ATCO codes, because it's a new authority looking after them. So the NAPTAN team last year did a split of Northamptonshire stops into the two new authorities. That is the only change that I'm aware of to authority ownership in NAPTAN, but for perhaps the other significant thing is the impact on TransExchange. So in TransExchange there is enumerated a predefined list of transport authorities. That list of authorities is the list of authorities as of 2010, and so therefore is a little out of date. And so we need to work out what we're going to do on that. And so when we get to issues log, there's a proposal about changes to TransExchange to cope with that. But we are going to have to be more aware and more on top of changes to ATCO codes and the ATCO area codes, and creation of new ones and removal of existing ones. And so those of you that consume NAPTAN data or deal with TransExchange, then they might need to be keeping up to date with updates and things like that, because historically static bits of data may no longer be quite so static because of the need for changes and things like that. So NAPTAN and TransExchange are the obvious ones that need some updating and playing around with. I don't know whether anybody else has got any ideas about what might need to change as a result of authority changes and things like that.
There's also CPIC codes in the world of concessionary fares, which we've had a lot of problem with when Cornwall went unitary, and updates didn't happen behind the scenes because every NAPTAN is allocated to a CPIC to identify the local authority where the journey starts.
Yep, thank you. Yes, Peter.
Well, just, I mean, the Northamptonshire transition was not as smooth as we would have liked. It caused quite a lot of problems. I mean, in data terms, you just wonder whether, if there are going to be more of these changes, whether having some sort of alias or some sort of system that would allow list two numbers as being essentially the same and uniquely paired for a transition period, that might sort of help. It might be a little bit of outside, it'll be outside of the standard at the moment, where you've got unique identifiers. But just to smooth the transition, I'm really just appealing to more thought about exactly how those transitions work. Learn the lessons from Northamptonshire, but I remember I was at Warrington in the past. That was a pretty horrendous when I was with Traveline, and we had to try and sort that out. It was so these are difficult, and it may be that something within the trans-exchange approach could think about the transition for you identifiers and overlaps.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Northamptonshire was the first time it had been done, and that was relatively simple. Somewhere like Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole take some bus stops from one authority, but not all of their stops and things like that. So it gets, more complicated. But yeah, absolutely. Let's learn the lessons. Yeah, yeah. Okay, Neil.
Yeah, I think some sort of lookup thing may well be a pragmatic option but then because the original local authority comprises part of the ATCO code, that might become historic. But I'm not sure how many of you guys are aware, but there is what's called a GSS code, a Government Statistical Service code, sort of 15-digit alphanumeric thing for various geographies. And so local authority districts or counties, countries, they all have these and they get updated through time. So you could just update, if there's a lookup for an ATCO to a GSS code, then the GSS code can change through time. So whether it becomes Derby one day and Nottingham the next, or Lancashire all of a sudden becomes Yorkshire and everybody's happy, then it's just you're updating a lookup table.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to chip in on this one? I mean, I think this will be a regular topic of conversation over the coming years about which authorities are changing and what's happening with them. Mike, yes.
I was just going to say, I seem to remember something happened in Nottinghamshire a long time ago when I was working on a previous real-time system. Did they split Nottinghamshire, or did we have had some? I remember some pain involved of NAPTANs changing at the time. Maybe might be talking 15 years ago though.
Yeah, Peter, you have a long memory.
Well,
Is
yes.
that why you're coming in?
Yes, there's been several. I can't quite remember them all. But to say that Northamptonshire were the first is not the case. We've had big change. But the one I may remember particularly because I was involved in it was when Warrington somehow split or something happened. That was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, John. You're on mute, John.
There are a number of cities which were merged into their surrounding counties in the 1970s, but subsequently escaped, so that Nottingham and Derby are examples. Luton escaped from Bedfordshire. It may well be that it's those instances that are being half recalled now. It happened in quite a number of former county boroughs recovered their autonomy.
Yeah. 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 Okay. John Carr.
Yeah, just to say that really two things. First of all, ATCO is very concerned that in some cases you may be splitting up integrated transport units, and if at all possible, it would be helpful if officers could say to the members that this is not really a good thing to do, because two authorities can agree, or more authorities can agree to work together under the existing legislation as far as we're concerned. And the second thing is that it is inevitably going to cause quite a lot of disruption if we're going to see the number of authorities that are currently slated for changes under the legislation. We're going to have a lot to do, which is going to take the eye off the ball of good integrated transport.
Yeah. As a group, all we can do though is react to the changes as they're confirmed and take place. But yeah, you're right. There will be significant disruption.
And we can offer advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So let's move on. In terms of Arctic update, things have been relatively quiet over the summer. Just after the last meeting, we released a guide on how real-time information is produced and the different roles and responsibilities of different people. And thank you for Nick and Teresa for their work on that. We are in the process of updating the guidance that we have had for a few years on avoiding low bridge strikes. With the unfortunate high-profile recent incidents, feels like something that needs to be done so we can help ensure that they're avoided in future. And we are about to ask suppliers of data systems for their Christmas advice to their user base, like we do every year, because in a few weeks' time we will be releasing the advice on this is how to cope with Christmas this year. But fortunately, this year Christmas is relatively easy. The advice is not put your turkey in the oven at 180 degrees for 12 hours or whatever you need to do, but it's more what days are what bank holidays on, and therefore which bits of software do you need to keep up to date. So yeah, that will be coming out in a couple of weeks. John,
just clarify who we is for the purposes of your reference to bridge strikes, because the KSI group within the Bus Centre of Excellence has been looking at this and is working hand in hand with Michael Woods at the Rail Safety and Standards Board, who is commissioning further research into this area. Were you referring to that or something else? Because if you were referring to anything else, it really needs to be liaising with what the KSI group are doing.
Yes, so we was Artig, and I'm well aware of the KSI's work, and I'm talking to Kerry because we both sit on the Centre of Excellence steering group. So I am talking to Kerry about that.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. Just want to make sure that all the
yeah, we're joined up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Nick.
Yeah, slightly different theme to Christmas, but I'm just wondering, any other local authorities that might be on the call facing this new challenge of some academies wanting to take 2-week October half terms, and how you're managing that within trying to get a consistent message out to the customer as to what level of bus service is running over that period?
Oh, interesting.
We've got just under half of our 11 to 16 academies are going for 2-week half terms this year, and we've got a situation in some towns where one secondary is 2-week half term, the other secondary is 1-week half term.
Lovely. So Dan says Surrey's got 2 weeks Octobers for all schools now. So presumably you lose a week at Christmas or summer or something like that along the way to achieve the statutory number of school days.
every academy group seems to do it differently. Some take evening inset days and still finish on the, and it stretches to the other end as well, July, where we get a whole proportion of them finishing around about this, what is it next year, 17th of July, Friday. Yeah, 17th of July. We've got a whole host of them, mostly the ones doing the 2-week half term, going to the 24th of July.
Yeah,
it's a real conundrum now. Academies set their own term dates.
Yes, sorry, I believe, which is great. They are using other inset days, so removing inset days, so the summer holiday should still be the same length. But then some other schools are apparently taking it out of summer holidays and still keeping inset days. It's like the Wild West at the moment. But yeah, the whole sorry, yeah, it's now 2-week half term. So yeah,
is
fun.
That something the schools have agreed on, Dan, between
Yeah.
themselves or guided by the local authority?
It was a consultation that the local authority did, and then they got feedback from the consultation. My son's school did it last year, just randomly as part of a trust group, but this year the Surrey County Council buzzed out all schools. They did a consultation, and all the residents were apparently in favour of it, but everyone I spoke to weren't in favour of it. So there's a bit of controversy there.
I'm not so in favour of it anymore now because the holiday prices are going up on the first week.
Exactly right.
Accommodation providers are catching on to it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I may catch up with you separately on that, Dan, to understand that consultation. I think it's something that we might look at doing down here as well.
Yeah, sure. Feel free to reach out.
Yeah, it's an absolute mess at the moment. We've got it split the way it is.
Okay. Anybody, if they can help Nick, then please get in touch with him. Okay, so let's skip EU standards development because there's not a lot going on, and that will allow us to move to issues. The 3 outstanding issues 103, 104 and 105 there is no update on, but we have a new issue which is linked to the authority changes. So TransExchange is used by the DVSA for electronic registrations. The fact that that authorities list is incorrect means that they can't make sure that the correct authorities are receiving notification of registrations, and so they're requesting an update and a change to that list, which means that we will need to update the enumerations in TransExchange, which will mean that we need to release some new point releases of the schema. The big question really for this group is, do we restrict that to 2.4. What would be 2 and 2.5? Is there a need to update 2.1 because it's not used for EBSR? And it's not used for BODs either if you're providing information about contracting authority, which is the other place that authority list is used in TransExchange. Nick?
Just in terms of that, the designation of Cornwall and Isles of Scilly is incorrect because the Isles of Scilly doesn't have local bus service licensing, and we are separate local authorities.
Okay, interesting. Thank you for that. The big problem that I'm working through with DVSA is actually identifying the official list of transport authorities, because some combined authorities are transport authorities, but not all. And so we're having to work through constitutions of authorities to identify that definitive list, because nobody else seems to have a list of those at the moment. So if anybody's done that work already, please let me have it. It'll save me hours.
I think I found a list somewhere, but it might not be particularly accurate. It was all about devolution and what's coming forward, because I was mapping where we are, like where Stagecoach is and where our local authorities might change into combined authorities. And I'm sure that there was, it was tucked at the end of a PDF from the Department for Transport, I'm pretty sure, but I'll have to see if I can dig it out.
Yeah. Every list that I've found and the DVSA have found has not been accurate.
Right.
It's a moving target. As this process is rolled out, it'll be changing every year for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Tim, I don't think I've got specifically the list of transport stuff, but I have for many years maintained a list of all the local authorities actually across the whole of GB, not just England. And I have updated it recently for a different project with data from a publication in the LGC back in February with the planned changes to devolution. Now, obviously that may have changed, but it is a categorization within the data set, which might give you a clue to which ones might be transport ones. So it's not directly your answer, but it is a list that can be used for a lot of things that might help you pinpoint some stuff.
Yeah,
So,
that might be useful, and because it's complicated. So, for example, the new North Yorkshire and York combined authority, whilst it is in existence, but the two authorities retain consultative powers for bus services, but in a lot of other combined authority areas, the individual authorities don't. So it's a confusing mess at the moment.
I happen to know the recently elected mayor for East Midlands, which for this purpose is Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire. And until after she'd been elected, she didn't know what her role in relation to local transport was going to be. She had to negotiate with the existing authorities as to do a deal as to who did what. So it's a very fluid situation.
Yeah. Okay, so the question that I could do with being answered is, are we happy if we don't update TransExchange 2.1 because it's not used for BODs and it's not used for electronic registrations, and it will hopefully only be internal comms between systems that 2.1 is still being used for?
Tim, I'll just say on that, it might be worth chatting to Amy a bit about that, because I know that obviously TransExchange 2.1 is still offered by the TNDS, and I believe it's still the most consumed format of that. But again, it'd be worthwhile confirming that with Traveline, I think.
Yes, good point.
Yeah, I was just having a mull over it in my mind, but yeah, we'll go away and have a think about that and communicate about that after the meeting, because I'll have to go away and have a muse on it.
Yeah, that would be appreciated. Thank you, Amy. Okay, in which case, next meeting is our December meeting, 4th of December. And please remember, Christmas hats and jumpers, you'll all forget by then. It seems a bit early to be saying that now. But then, any other business? John, you're on mute.
Just briefly to raise one thing, my interest in these matters is as an end consumer of transport information rather than a provider. My professional background was with London Travel Watch, which is effectively the London counterpart of Transport Focus. And we used to spend a lot of our time debating with transport providers, and particularly TfL, which is the biggest player in the field, not just what information they should be providing, but how to make it intelligible to the end user, because the information's not just got to be current and accurate, it's also got to be in a form that people can understand readily for purposes of making their journeys with confidence. Because this was a running of interest for us. Over the time, we collected quite a large library of reports and papers and analyses and theses exploring this subject from basically across the English-speaking world. Now, a lot of this sort of predates the era of real-time information and electronic information distribution, but I think it still has some currency in terms of what the end output looks like and whether it's in a form that people can actually comprehend and find useful. I have digitized all this research material, and I'm happy to make any or all of it or a list of it available to anybody else that's interested. If you think it's worth doing, Tim, and care to circulate my contact details for this purpose, I'd be very happy then to follow up any requests I might get from anybody else that would like copies of specific items. I can circulate a spreadsheet with all the titles and dates and so on, and it's there for those that think it might be of interest and relevance to them.
Yeah. I'll send round an email with your contact details on and that request stroke offer.
Thank you very much, and I hope it's helpful.
Yes, thank you, John. Ian.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. It's just general query. Talked about registrations earlier on. EBSR, what's happening with that on the basis that the files available for download aren't the same anymore, i.e. the document summary, which gives you all the stops being used and a timetable that's actually in place, is not made available anymore since probably beginning of July on the operators that we use. So I'm just wondering, is everybody else experiencing this, or are we just the chosen ones?
I can still download them.
Do you get the summary, document summary?
Yeah, the PDF file that it generates. Well, at least last time I looked, a couple of weeks ago, I was able to get them.
Right, because
I'm going to go and have a look now.
Yeah, Northwest is struggling. We get the map in as a PDF, but we don't get the option for the document summary, and we get the XML in the zip file, but you've nothing to check the XML back against to make sure it's what it should be. So I'm just wondering, anybody else? Otherwise, I'll have to raise support. And it's not just one operator; it's 3 operators.
That's the first time I've heard that, Ian, but that's very interesting.
Okay, yeah, happy to have a Teams call, and I'll show you on screen, and you can see what we're struggling with.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Ian. John Carr.
Yeah, going back to John Cartledge earlier, one of the things John will remember is that out of all that work, there was always a consistent recommendation that hard copy was held of everything which was of relevance to the public. I think it's worth reiterating that recommendation in view of the fact that we are now in an age where all sorts of interference can go on with IT systems. Transport for London, for example, it didn't affect information as far as I know, but had all of its headquarters systems taken down by a hacker attack. In terms of our function of getting information to the public, we should always, I think, be able to advise stations and people on the ground that they should refer to printed information because the electronic is not available.
I would agree with that. I'd also add that I think it's important that hard copies of everything finds their way to the bus archive just for the historical record. Because otherwise future researchers are not going to be able to monitor what changes in network and pattern of services, because once the service has gone, the electronic record will have gone too.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike.
I was just going to say that in terms of hard copies of timetables, they're very few and far between these days. So in Leicester, as far as I know, we've got a new service called the 21T because it goes to this new development called Thornbury. And I believe that there is a hard copy timetable for that. And I'm presuming the only reason we've got that is because the developer has probably funded it. But yeah, and I think Skylink, the Kinch route that goes to East Midlands Airport, has one. Yeah, and I'm part of like a local Leicester Transport Heritage Trust, and they keep an archive. So I give them copies of what timetables we've got, and we've only got those, as far as I know, those are the only printed timetables that are available for Leicester. So yeah, it's a sign of the time, I'm afraid.
And that's largely true of London as well. The TfL has opted out of printing most of its conventional map and timetable information long since. There's still a large cottage industry of people who spend their weekends attempting to redesign the underground map there.
Okay, is there any other business? No. Okay.
I just found the list of what I think are the transport concession authorities. So I've popped a link in the chat. I'll shove in a CSV file and a mapping file as well. If you'd use Esri ArcShape files.
Yes, yeah, that's fine. That FOI request, unfortunately, is not current.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. but I tried to update it with what else I found, sort of thing. But yeah, you can look at what I've got, and then you can tell me I'm wrong.
Well, if you've got it right, you are the only person that seems to have the list. So, but anyway, yeah. Thank you, Neil. Okay, in which case, thank you all. Oh, Nick, before we just clawed in on that for the third time of asking.
Just very quickly, I think it was Ian, wasn't it, saying about being able to download files from the EBSR section of the TC. I've just gone to download the most recent one, and indeed all that's there is the XML file, no map or summary of the registration. So without a tool to decode that TransExchange file or the XML back into something readable, it's become pretty useless. Fortunately, I've still got a copy of the old DFT TransExchange Publisher tool, which by miracle still works on a Windows 11 PC.
It's very good. It does the job.
Yeah, you might find the mapping function doesn't work, Nick, on that, because I
haven't used that for a couple of years. But to be honest, we've never got it to work with our firewalls on the council infrastructure. But yeah, so I know they're not there for us. But yeah, so now there's no. You have to run it through the TransExchange Publisher if you're lucky enough to still have that and have it functioning to make a readable file out of it, which is a shame.
Okay, finally, thank you all for your time this afternoon. Have a good rest of the day, and see you in December for a PTIC meeting, and for a lot of you probably on another call between now and then. Thank you all, and goodbye.
Cheers.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.